In this video, we'll start to look at things that we can do with the Python language. So let's start simple. We'll use the interpreter that you see on the screen already, and we will look at the print command, and we will do some additional things with it beyond what we did with the very first video. So we have the prompt, and we have the three triangular braces pointing to the right, and then we have the cursor blinking. So this is telling us to type something in here. So this is just going to be some print commands. Let's print, and we'll just print out hi there, double quote. And remember, when you hit the enter key, then the interpreter immediately executes that line, and it does what you told it to do. It prints hi there back out to the screen. Now, I use double quotes. There's another way you can do that. We could do print with single quote. So single quote, hi there, a single quote, and you close paren, and you see you get the same thing. So you can define what we call a string constant by enclosing it with a pair of double quotes or a pair of single quotes. They both work the same way. Now, I'm going to do another print and a double quote. This is a string. And let's put a period and a double quote and close parentheses again. Whenever you see something like this, when it begins with a double quote, you have some information, and that information can be whatever you want to type, numbers, letters, underscores, and special characters, as long as you close it with a double quote. So this whole thing is known as a string constant, a string constant. So if we type something like this, as you've seen already, and we hit enter, then we print that out to the screen. Well, what if we want to print a number? We can do print and then just put in the number, close parentheses, and it prints the number. This is an integer value. So when you see a number like this, 256, then that's what we know as known as a whole number, and it has a special type in computer languages. It's known as an integer type. Let's do print, and let's put a real number in here, like 37.625. So that's a real number. We can print that to the screen, and you see the output is exactly what you would expect. So this thing is called a real number, and it has a special type as well. So we can distinguish between values that are real numbers and values that are whole integer values. And you'll see more about that in future videos. We can also do some simple calculations, as you've seen already. We can put a simple formula, okay, print 25 plus 15, close parentheses. Then it does the calculation, it adds those together, and it prints out the answer. So with the print statement, you can put a formula inside the parentheses, and it will give you the resulting value. It doesn't print 25 plus 15, it prints the actual sum of those, which is 40. What if we try to do that with strings? We could do a print, and we'll use a double quote, 25, double quote. That's a string, 25, plus double quote, 15, double quote, parentheses. When I try to do that, notice that the answer we get is the 25 and the 15. So it did not try to add those together when they're strings. In this case, the plus means to concatenate those strings together. So we take the 25 and we take the 15, and there's a little space there. So those are concatenated together, and the result of that is 25 space 15, and that is what is printed to the screen. So it's important to know the difference between something that is a string versus something that's a number. If it's just a number, then you can let Python do the calculation and give you the answer. Whereas if it's a string, then it cannot do calculations with strings, but it can connect them together. So it's important to know that difference. Now, let's look at one more. Let's do print, and suppose we want to print out hi, y'all, okay, Southern. So in this case, what we want to do is to print out the little single quote there. And by using the double quotes around the whole thing, it allows us to use a single quote in here. So that's one advantage of having this single quote and double quote as an option for string constants. So in this case, if I do hit enter, then I do get the hi y'all with the apostrophe right there. So that's an advantage to having the single quotes and double quotes both available. All right, now let's move on and let's look at what we call comments. Okay, comments are things that we can use to describe our program, but they aren't actually executed. The way that we format them is we use this symbol, which now we pretty much know as a hashtag, and then whatever we want to write. This is a comment. Now, if I hit enter, then nothing happens. That's because this isn't a command for the interpreter to do something. This is just a description, right? So let's suppose now that I want to print something to the screen. I can do print, and I could say hi there with must have parentheses. I get a syntax error. Okay, so we'll do print, okay, double quote, hi there, double quote, and then I can put a comment afterwards. If I can finally get this typed, there we go. Now, if I want to put a comment on this line, I can do so by using this hashtag and then whatever I want to put here. Say hello. Now, this will print to the screen, hi there, but the say hello will not be output. That's just a comment that we can put in our program to describe what we're doing. So we get hi there, but we do not get this output. So this is more important when we're putting all of our commands into a program or into a file, so we can put the description in there, and I'll show that coming up. But this illustrates then what you can use in your program to do some comments. So, and also the color is interesting. So at least on Windows, the comment shows up as red, and the string constants show up as green. Now, what happens if we make a mistake? What if we type something that is incorrect? What if I did print and then hello world, but I didn't put any comments around it. I didn't put double quotes. So if I try to run this, then I get a big red message saying invalid syntax. So that is not correct. You will see these error messages. You will get them a lot. And in this case, it's pretty easy to tell what went wrong. The highlighted letter W is really not much help for us here. It doesn't give us any real additional information, but we didn't put the double quotes. With any programming language, you do have to follow the rules. Otherwise, it will not work. So I failed to put in the double quotes, and it did not understand what I was trying to tell it, so it didn't do what I wanted it to do. Now, if you want to, you can just copy and paste as well, so you don't have to type things over again. So if I want to copy this print hi there and paste it down here, I can do a Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste it, and then I can get this out again without having to type it. So here's the correct way. One way, you can do single quotes or you can use double quotes, but you must use them, otherwise you get the syntax error. Let's look at another instance. Let's do print, okay, double quote, hi there, double quote, and then close it. Here is another big red error message. Okay, so what's wrong with this line? There is an error on that line. Can you tell what it is? The information is probably not going to help you very much right now, especially this part of it. It may be hard to understand, but the last output line says print is not defined. My mistake was I used an uppercase P. So it is important to know that the syntax is matters. The uppercase versus lowercase matters. So uppercase print is not recognized by Python as a print function. It has to be lowercase. All right. So again, I can copy and paste this down here, and then I can just change that capital P to a lowercase p. Then everything is okay. So this illustrates error messages. So whenever you're running a Python program, and if there's something wrong syntactically, then you will get some sort of error message that shows up here. Now, let's suppose we want to print hello world, but we want to print hello on one line and world on the next line. Can we do this? Okay, print, okay, double quote, hello. And if I want to go to another line, can I hit enter? Well, no, I can't. Here is another error. Okay, here's a syntax error. We have another message, which again, it may or may not be very useful to us at this point, but we do know for sure something's wrong. So this is not allowed, and one reason is that we didn't have a closing double quote over here. So we have to have that. Well, if I do that, if I do print, double quote, hello, another double quote, and then if I wanted to go to a new line, then I can't, because as soon as I hit enter, it executes the line that I just printed. So I can't type print hello and then type print world, at least in the interpreter, and get the output across two lines. Then how can you do that? We have to use what's called a special character. So we can do print, double quote, hello, and here is the special character. It's a backslash followed by an N. So I guess that's really two characters. But these are called control characters and sometimes called escape characters. But at any rate, we do hello, backslash N means now go to a new line. Then write world, then close the double quote, close the parentheses. So when I hit enter, then I get what I want. I get hello on one line and I get world on the next line. So this backslash N just means put in a carriage return. So it prints hello, carriage return goes to the next line, and then it prints out the word world. This all has to be done within the double quotes. So we can't do a single double quote on one line and another closing double quote on the other. So it will not let us do that. But this does work. So we can have as many of these backslash N's as you want. Let's copy this print and let's paste it. And let's add another backslash N right here. Okay, so now I have hello and backslash N. That means to do two carriage returns. So when I hit enter this time, then the first backslash N goes to the next line here. The next backslash N moves down, and then we print out world. So I have skipped a line by adding in the extra backslash N. So you can use as many of these as you want within your print statement, and you can print blank lines in between your output like this if you want to. Another special character we can use is tab. So let's do print, double quote, and I'll do one. I do need a paren. Okay, double quote, one, a backslash T is a tab. Okay, so there's a backslash T. Then let's type 2, a backslash T. And then 3, double quote, close parentheses. When I hit the enter key, then here's the output. So now 1 is printed to the left, 2 shows up here, and there's a tab in between. So a tab gives me, I think, 5 extra characters there. And then we have another tab after 2, then we print out the word 3. So here are two useful special characters you can use. The tab to separate items on output, and the backslash N if you want to go to a carriage return and put in extra lines for your output. Let's look at one more. Now this one I'm putting in because it's in the textbook Python for Biologists, which we are using in this course. And in particular in chapter 2, it mentions that we can do another special character, which is a backslash R. Well, I couldn't get that to work, and I doubt that you can get it to work either. It's kind of an older command, but let me show you what it's supposed to do, since it's there in the textbook. A backslash R is supposed to let us overwrite a character. So if I did a print, double quote, a parentheses, double quote, and let's print A, B, C, D, E, F, double quote, close paren, then this prints A, B, C, D, E, F, as you would expect. Now let's copy this command and let's try it again. But after the F, let's put a backslash R, and let's do another backslash R. Then let's put GH in there. Now, according to the documentation, the backslash R should move our carriage or position for printing back over the F. The other backslash R should move it back over here. So if it worked the way it is described, we'd get A, B, C, D, then GH. The GH would overwrite the E and the F because we've backed up a character with this backslash R and backslash R. However, if you actually code this, type it in like I have, and if you run it, then you'll see that does not work. Okay, backslash R is ignored, and it prints the GH right after the F. All right. So if you were interested, and you can go look that up, but this is kind of an older command that was more useful when we had more primitive output devices like teletypes and things like that. But it's supposed to overwrite the previous characters. It does not. Let's leave it at that and move on. The next part of this video is going to go into the use of variables. Wow. So we are going to now, instead of being able to just type something and immediately see the output, we want to be able to save information. There's a lot of stuff on the screen, and because of this, sometimes it's convenient to do a restart. So let's go up to the shell, and let's do a restart shell here. Okay, so that's also a Control F6 if you wanted to use that keyboard shortcut. But I'm going to restart the shell, which really means I just want to kind of erase everything I've done before, and then we'll start new down here. So you'll see this output line show up. What about variables? Well, let's look at variables. How do you define a variable? It's pretty easy. You just need to come up with a name, and let's suppose we want to call this myDNA. That's a variable. Then you can just type it out, and if you want to initialize it to something, you can use the equal sign, and then you just give it some information. Okay, so let's use our string constant again here, and let's type some DNA in here. ATG CGTA, and close that with a double quote. So what we're doing here is we're just defining a variable, and you can hit enter a couple of times. So let's do that to move it up on the screen. So here is the variable, and if we want to assign it something, you use the equal sign, and in this case we're giving it a string constant which has some base pairs. Now if you want to see what that looks like on screen, if you want to print that out, then we can do print, except I don't want uppercase. We can do print, and we can include the variable my_DNA, close parentheses, and then when I hit enter, then you see the output is that string ATGCGTA. So we have defined a variable, and we have given it some information, and that remains stored by Python. So later on, we can use it. So this is a variable. It contains information. When we're talking about variables, then there are some rules that we have to follow. So I'm going to mention the rules here, and then we'll write those down a little bit later. So when you are defining a variable, here are some rules. And the first rule is it must begin with a letter. So you can use an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter. You can even use an underscore. That's allowed, but let's not worry about that. It's legal, but let's not start our variables with an underscore. The variable can contain letters, uppercase, lowercase. It can contain numbers, and it can contain an underscore, as I've used here. So it must start with a letter. Once you start it with a letter, it can contain letters, numbers, and underscores. And then the other rule is that an uppercase, well, it's case sensitive. Okay, so an uppercase M is different than a lowercase m, so those will be different. And I guess there's one more rule I need to mention. It can't be one of these special words we use in the Python language. So, we can't make a variable that we call print and save it and use it to save information. Okay, so those are the rules. Well, given the rules, then let's experiment with this a little bit. Now, I could print and just print out the string directly. So let me copy this and paste it. Close parentheses and hit enter. Okay, so we have seen already you can print out a string like that. And you saw already we can store that information into a variable and we can print that out. Copy and paste here. Okay, so in this case here we're printing out the string directly, and the second case we're printing out what the variable my data contains. And since they contain the same thing, you'll see the same output. Let's do some more variables. Let's do first name, and let's that equal to, and you can use your own name here, right? So you can do your name or make up a name. Let's do first name is equal to Roger, and let's do last name is equal to Simmons, just making those up. Then I've declared two more variables, first name and last name, and I've initialized them to Roger and to Simmons. Now let's print those out. We could do print first name, and then we can concatenate those together and we could print them out together like this. Okay, so first name concatenated with the last name will print out Roger Simmons. So here you see that we have indeed concatenated the two together and we've output those to the screen. See? So once you've declared variables, then you can combine them like this using concatenation if you want to. One thing I've noticed here is that the R and the S are adjacent, so we'd rather not have them like that. We would like to put a space in between. So let's modify this print a little bit. Let's copy and let's paste it here. And if I want to concatenate a space, then I can, after the plus, do a double quote, put a space there, another double quote, then another plus sign. So this then will output the first name, then it will add on a space, then it will add on the last name. So now we'll have a space between first name and last name, except I copied. The problem here is, here's a syntax error. I made a mistake. So I accidentally copied and pasted that as part of my statement, so I don't want that. So let's don't get the curly braces. I mean, don't get the triangular braces. And now let's try it. So now we get Roger, and there's the space between. So you can use variables to retain information, and they will stay. They'll stay in effect until you reset your shell. So that's an example of variables. There's another way that you can also output without using the concatenation. We can do print first name, and you can use a comma. Okay, use a comma right there. Last name, and then close the parentheses. So if you didn't want to use the concatenation operator and you wanted to see both of these variables printed out, then you can just separate them with commas. So here you'll see you have Roger and you have Simmons all on the same line, and because we used a comma there, I have got this space right there. So the space is included when I print that out. So that's just two different ways that you can output information. Now let's conclude this video by doing just a couple more examples of our first name and last name. Let's do print, let's do a double quote, Roger. Well, let's use the uppercase there, Roger. Okay, backslash T, Simmons, double quote. So in this case, I am just using the string constant, and I'm using the tab backslash T, so that separates the first and the last names. Let's do another. Let's do print. This time, let's not use the backslash T here. Let's print out first name, which contains Roger. Then let's do a double quote, a backslash T, double quote. Then let's print out Simmons. Okay, close parentheses. There we go. Now, what's going to happen? I get a syntax error. So it didn't work quite like I wanted it to. And the reason for that is that we are trying to print out three things and there's nothing to separate them. We just have these spaces here, so it does not understand what I'm trying to do. So if I really wanted to print out a tab between those, then the way you would do it is we would put the concatenation operator. We can do that. We can use the plus. Then we print out the tab, and then we print out the Simmons. Well, that's one issue as well. Simmons isn't what I need here. I need to use double quotes for that. So I meant to type last name. So that's also another error that I just noticed. So now I can do that because I put in these plus signs between each of the items. You know, first name is an item, this tab is an item, and then last name is an item. So now when I hit enter, I do get what I wanted. So first name, then a tab, then last name. Now finally, let's print these out on separate lines. So I'm going to copy that print statement and I'll paste it in here. And instead of going to a tab between them, I'm going to go to a new line. So I'll print first name, which is Roger, go to a new line, print last name, so they'll be on separate lines. And that's what you see here. Now, this video is already too long. It illustrates some of the basics of printing to the screen, and it also illustrated some of the error messages that you would get and how to take care of those. So let's close this video here, and we'll pick up with some more exciting stuff